Yeah. Hey, hey. You, but in love sometimes about you, but it ain't a crime. In love sometimes I don't know about you, but it ain't a crime. Yeah. Give me some head. 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 Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast at. Give me some head. Come on. Give me some head. Give me some head. In love sometimes. I don't know about you, but it ain't a crime. In love sometimes. I don't know about you, but it ain't a crime. 1990. 1990. Yeah.
First time you take a step back.
Can I hear this?
I made that.
With your very
Test. Yeah. Sounds good to me. You know? Yeah. That would be Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts at. You can holler at Third Perspective Podcast, a fresh podcast each and every Tuesday. You know? You catch us live, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you get your live streams at. The podcast is live. You know what I'm saying, dog? Now, tonight, it's really not a podcast night, right? But I just felt like coming on this joint to show my appreciation. To get us to this point where next week will be our anniversary, right? 4-year anniversary podcast, Third Perspective, right? It was a long journey with this podcast, you know. Started off, we was podcasting on the phone, you know. Started off a motherfucking pandemic, you know, which rearranged things. We ain't stopped podcasting. It made us better, be honest with you, because it put us on way more platforms. Because we then when you live on YouTube and Facebook and all types of shit, something that I never was thinking about doing, right? So when we first started this podcast, it was strictly supposed to be just Spotify, Google Podcast, just voice, you know. None of us thought about being live, actually live on all platforms and shit, right? That was not even on our radar. But the pandemic is trying to shift things where we can talk to each other from a distance and be on and still podcast. So it made it so now we end up going live doing our podcast. So up until then, we were strictly audio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, right? Shouts out to my man Kareem. Made him start off podcast from the beginning with the Nerd and the Hustler podcast, right? So that's my first podcast I ever started off with. Shouts out to him. You know what I'm saying? He helped me continue on where I'm at now, be honest with you. So shouts out to DJ Bill too, who put me on the podcast, and because he used to bring me in on his wrestling podcast, you know what I'm saying, and gave me the bug, you know. So shouts out to him too for the show. But the podcasting was just in general, us as 9-to-5, average Joe people that just go to work every day, and you know what I'm saying, the average problems, you know, felt like our voice wasn't heard, you know, in all these platforms. So it felt like if we can just give our voices, which is not just DC native voices, just the average Joe voice, right? To some of these topics, which is most people don't get. They just get, saying you if it's sports, you're gonna get a corporate point of view. You know what I'm saying? If it's politics, you're gonna get a corporate point of view, you know? So I just feel like it is another point of view, right? And that's the unsung heroes, the unsung people that go to work every day smelling like some old trash or coming in the joints soaking wet because they've been sweating all day or wearing some shit that the significant other can't stand smelling. You know what I'm saying, dog? But that's the average 9 to 5 job, right? And when you get to the point where you're struggling through life, right? And you feel like your voice ain't being heard as an average person, you know what I'm saying, on many, many topics. I just felt like there's an opportunity to give our voices to some of these things, give our perspective, which made it the third perspective. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole name of it. We're giving it our third perspective. It's not a professional type of view. It's not failures of their professional type view. You know what I'm saying? It's the third perspective. It's just the average Joe that wake up every day and try and figure out, okay, how I'm gonna pay this fucking bill. You know what I'm saying, dog? So we just felt like starting the podcast off, uh, thinking that more of giving our personal opinion on a lot of things. Now, when the podcast started off, we was heavy into politics because at the time it was a lot going on. George Floyd was going on. It was like hot button issues that was in our culture that we just couldn't ignore. You know, this is a hip hop culture podcast. You know, but at the time it was deeply political. You know, so that was at the beginning of the podcast. So it was a lot of heated debates on political issues. You know what I'm saying, dogs? If you go back to our history, it's like almost 500 podcasts in the last 3.5, 4 years. So we did 2 podcasts a week up until today. You know what I'm saying, dog? We haven't missed no podcast. So 2 podcasts a week live, unscripted podcasts. So that's why I just appreciate everybody that take the time out to listen to us from any platform, Spotify, Google Podcasts, our podcast for sure, because around the world, something that we never expected to be going on is around the world, people listen to you. You know what I'm saying? So that right there takes it to another level because now you got people around the world listen to you as a DC native. And I take that at heart because I want to represent, you know what I'm saying, the black man, the black family, DC natives, you know what I'm saying? I just want to represent to the fullest. Now, as the podcast went on, and I'm finding out that more than just Americans listen to you. You know what I'm saying, though? So, more than appreciation for listeners, you know what I'm saying? I just want to go over a few things, right? Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts is heard from around the world. At this point in our podcast journey, going on our 4th year anniversary, we're at 2,100 downplays and streams worldwide, right? At this point, most countries that listen to us, the most listened countries are Canada, Guiana, Germany, Vietnam, Bahamas, United Kingdom, South Africa, the Netherlands, Nigeria, Puerto Rico, Kenya, Australia, Jamaica, France, Haiti. Shouts out to Haiti, man. Keep y'all heads up out there too. Barbados, India, Brazil, Belize. Shouts out to Belize too. You got us in the top 5. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all a whole lot out there if you're listening right now. Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? Israel, Romania, Philippines, Ireland, Zimbabwe, Sweden, New Japan, Mexico, Spain, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. Our most listened to country is obviously going to be America. Second most listened to country is Canada. And I just want to show my appreciation to all these people, all the countries around the world. If you're sitting there listening to the Third Perspective podcast, we appreciate y'all a whole lot. We never thought that somebody in the Bahamas be sitting under some tree listening to our perspective on trending topics. So that's something that was never thought of, never expected. And we appreciate y'all a whole lot, you know what I'm saying, around the world that contribute, download, stream this podcast. You just don't understand how much we appreciate that. You know what I'm saying, dog? So for the future of the podcast, we're going to do a lot more things than we've been doing. We want to expand. We want to change locations. We want to do interviews, more interviews. You know what I'm saying? We just want to get more active as this podcast grow and grow. You know what I'm saying, dog? So we just appreciate everybody, man, around the world and DC, DMV area for tuning into the podcast, man. Y'all don't know how much we appreciate that a whole lot. You know what I'm saying, dog? From YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our podcast. We be live, like I said, 2 times a week. Live. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know what I'm saying, dog? We 9 to 5ers. We do this anyway. We go to fucking work every day. You know what I'm saying, dog? So we here 2 days a week podcasting for show for the Third Perspective. You know what I'm saying, dog? But the journey been sweet. I just appreciate everybody that's been with me on this journey. Everybody contribute to the podcast. Everybody from appreciate Sterlo for coming through the joint. Miss Monica, you know what I'm saying, dog, for coming in the joint, stepping in. We just appreciate everybody to contribute to the podcast each and every way you did. You know what I'm saying? Money Mike, you know what I'm saying? Lil Ace, everybody to come on the joint, man. We appreciate everybody that contribute to our podcast to get us to this point, man, that we want to expand this thing, grow this thing. You know what I'm saying, dog? So more people can have access to the Third Perspective podcast and just the average Joe point of view. You know what I'm saying? Women and men. You know what I'm saying? So just to this point, man, I just appreciate everybody for show. If you on YouTube, man, subscribe to us for show. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, that's where we at all times. Check that out. You know what I'm saying, dog? If you're on Spotify, check us out. You know what I'm saying? It's a fresh joint up every Tuesday. Brand new, you know what I'm saying, podcast. So we ain't missing a beat there. You know what I'm saying? So we appreciate all our sponsors too for tuning in and contributing to our podcast. I couldn't explain this much more than now that how much we appreciate y'all. That I just couldn't explain it. That none of this was expected, right? None of this was thought of when you thought of just putting your point of view out. So this is way more than I thought. So I just want to take it and run with it. You know what I'm saying? So from this point on, we just appreciate everybody, man. And we showing our love and letting you know how much we appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying, dog? So check us out live Thursday night. You know what I'm saying, dog? So we can get into the thing, this podcasting thing before Christmas come. You know what I'm saying, dog? Shouts out to everybody, though. New York, Texas, for sure. Holla at your boys. We appreciate y'all. Tennessee, we appreciate you for sure. You know what I'm saying? Australia, we appreciate everybody in Australia tuning in. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate everybody in New York and Atlanta. Appreciate everybody, man, just taking the time out to download and stream our podcast. We got much. What? What's up, good? Touch it, why don't you, baby? What it look like? Why don't you? Say what? Why don't you? Why don't you? Yeah.